My name is Judy Towers. I'm going to bring you on something that's called Subversion and Espionage directed against you. It's a connotation of what I used to teach when I was in the Army as an active duty counterintelligence agent. That was called SAEDY, Subversion and Espionage directed against the Army. So this is a movie called The Bridge of Spies. There is such a bridge between two countries, communist and non-communist country, East and West Germany or one of the others. I've stood on such a bridge in the middle while they're taking pictures of me standing there with a very long telephoto lens, and they're like 300, 400 yards inside their country. It was East Germany. And they're dressed in their uniforms. I was in civilian clothes, and they're taking my picture just because I was standing on the bridge looking at them and watching them. So these type of scenarios, this is a true story about these things did happen not too long ago. So it's a very good movie if you want to watch it, Bridge of Spies. And is this going to do what I want it to do? Nope, no, this isn't doing it. Hold on. There we go. A little bit of history. Like I said, in the Army, I was an active duty counterintelligence agent with the Army for 6 years. I spent most of my time over in Germany during the Cold War. That's how old I am. What got me started on this was a couple of years ago, I went to DerbyCon, and I sat and listened to the pen tester, the social engineering village. It was very interesting to hear pen testers talking about how they target and profile people, and that's just for a pen test. And they were doing that, and this is what got me a little bit passionate about it, is one of them talked about that their task was to go to a bank and hack into the database. Instead of going to the headquarters of the bank, they went down to one of the branches. And he got there early enough to watch everybody walking in, the employees walking in. He profiled the employees walking in the door, and he decided which one he was going to talk to and approach and social engineer her to get access to the system. So he did that. He went in, and he was dressed in probably a polo shirt and pair of khakis, looked like business attire, normal, every day. Hey, I need some help. I want a checking account. Can you help me? The teller goes, yes, I can help you. Come over here. Let's sit down. And as they started, he goes, I need to go to the restroom. Can I take a break? She's like, yeah, it's down the hall. When you're done, come back and see me, and we'll finish where we started, right? So he did that. When he came out of the bathroom, across the hall was an empty office. So he walked in and sat down at the desk in the empty office and started doing his magic on the network. He was there for an hour before anybody approached him and said, what are you doing and who are you? Because he looked like everybody else in the office that was working. He, business attire, he looked like he fit in. So the bank manager actually is the one who approached him and said, what are you doing here? What's going on? And he finally realized that they were hacking the network. The next day, they fired the teller because she didn't keep an eye on him. She went back to her day job, handling other customers, right? So they fired her, and this kind of upset me because they fired her for the very reasons they hired her. Outgoing, extrovert, customer focused, friendly, what can I do to help you? But that was the very traits that got her fired. My opinion, you didn't train her well enough. You didn't train her to be aware of what could happen to her in such an environment. And this is one of the things that we did with the SAEDY briefing in the Army is because you wore the uniform, because you had U.S. Army and a U.S. flag on your shoulder. When I was in Germany, even though Germany was a friendly country, they were still killing us to get access to military posts. I was over there when Ramstein had a hit. They killed a U.S. Air Force soldier at a bar to take his ID so they could get on post. And they left a bomb on post when everybody was doing PT in the morning. This is in the late 80s. Don't get me wrong, sounds like a long time ago. But this was a friendly country. Right? This is West Germany. This is West Germany as we know it today. So I gave these briefings to all the new incoming soldiers to my unit. They also got the briefing once a year. Well, I'm here to tell you this briefing once a year is not enough. Because when you walk away, you're going back to, like this teller, she went back to her day job, right? She's going back to what she's supposed to do, not realizing she just got social engineered. I'm going to tell you this, if I got fired for that, I wasn't social engineered. You used espionage against me, and that's a tradecraft that everybody just about can't fight. Because one thing they're doing, and this is what Crypto was talking about yesterday, is they target you, they learn your vulnerabilities. It doesn't happen very often, but if they're very determined, they're going to figure you out. They're going to figure your vulnerabilities just like a pen tester did and got her fired. He also told the same story, too, that he had to get into the server room of a data center. This data center had guards, had inside guards and outside guards. Well, he showed up to be a fire extinguisher examiner, inventory, whatever, right? I got to go do this. And so they're like, I don't have my orders. I'm not on the list to get in. What can you help me? It's late in the day. Can you let me in? And so he started talking to the head of security. Both of them are vets. Both of them served roughly in the same area in Germany or whatever, right? So he built a collaborative environment with him, right? He's talked to him for over an hour. At the end of the hour, they were hugging. That's how close he got with him. And he's like, hey, I got just a few minutes. I know there's a fire extinguisher in the server room. Can you get me in there and get me out really quick? And we'll be out of your hair. Yeah, I'll take it. Security guy goes, I'll take you in there. So he walked him into the server room. Somehow or another, he left him alone in the server room for a few minutes. Mission accomplished, right? That was his goal. That was the goal of the pen test. So the next day, he found out that the company fired everybody on the security detail. It was an outsourced company. They fired the company. Still, in my opinion, you did not train them to be aware of what was going on. It's tradecraft. It works, and it still works today. That's why it's still being used. And like Crypty was saying yesterday, if you're a domain admin, you're a target. You're the easiest way for me to get on the network is through you. Why should I hack the network when I can get through you? And we'll talk some more about that. And this is something I saw last year, and this was when I was coming away from DerbyCon going, oh my God, they're using techniques that I was trained as a counterintelligence agent against nation states and military people. Their pen testers are using what I was trained to do against everyday, ordinary people, right? Just to get in. So I came across this article and I was trying to figure out how do we get people to change, right? You get your security briefing once a year and you go back to your desk and you still click, your users will still click on websites, on email attachments because they're doing their everyday job. Those of us in the security field, we should be a little more sensitive to it, but don't get me wrong, we still click on things too. But this was something that I really liked this article. We need to change your behavior. It's not awareness. I need to make sure your behavior gets changed. So when you're faced with the dilemma, you choose the right answers. And hopefully the right answer is no, I won't click on it. No, I won't go to bed with you. No, I won't get drunk with you. No, I won't go do silly things with you. And believe me, it is happening. But this was a very good article, and this is what I think we need to do. Instead of saying security awareness, we need behavioral change. So I brought that up. And this was I met Edward at DerbyCon, and I love this. My 0 day are your employees, right? I don't have to learn a piece of code. I'll tell you another story that was shared with me. They didn't have to write one piece of code to get into the server room or get the system domains that password. They didn't have to write any Python. They didn't have to go after the firewall. They went after the system administrator, and I'll tell you how they did it. But this is true, your employees. And this was something I was thinking about the other day, and I know we are all tired of hearing it, that your end users are your weakest link. And it was hitting me that we talk about endpoints. You as a user are the endpoint. You are the ultimate endpoint. The computer is just another thing, but you're the one who makes decisions, you're the one who hits enter, but you're also the one that has vulnerabilities that no code that I could write. If you have financial problems, if you have a sex problem, if you have whatever kind of problem, and I show up, that's what I'm not going to write code to exploit that. I'm going to talk to you. And that's what people are doing. That's what nation states are doing, and they are still active in this country. You'd be surprised. And Sophie Daniels, Hide and Seek, awesome. She talks, you need to follow her on Twitter. She talks about what she does, how she's successful at what she does. I took this from her website, from her blogs, really cool. But she, with the things in yellow, lock picking, climbing over walls and hot barbed wire fences, I get to go dumpster diving and play with all sorts of cool tools. When I saw that, that's exactly what I was trained to do. I've done dumpster diving. I have found classified go-to-war plans in the trash. She's doing exactly what I had to climb over fences to get on post to go hack into the network. When I say hack, it was physical, right? I wasn't allowed on post. Nobody stopped me. Nobody questioned me because I was wearing the uniform, but I wasn't allowed to be there. No one stopped me. And then she pretended to be someone I'm not. That's exactly what I did. I was collecting information to see if units were protecting their go-to-war plans. I showed up and I talked to them on the phone, or I showed up to their meetings, and they gave me the information because they weren't expecting it. I blended in. But this... If you want it, she talks good stuff. Practical. One of her favorite ones is, she's a pretty woman. She shows up with her hands full at the workplace that has like security cards that you're supposed to have an ID to. My hands are full and I can't get in the door. Will somebody help me? All the guys are helping her. And they let her in. They get her in the elevator. What floor do you need to go to? And they push the buttons for, and off she goes. And she's in. First boo-boo right there. She got through with the no showing cards. What is it? What's the word when you're following people in on instead of tailgating? That's not what we used when I was in, but tailgating is what she was doing, and she's very good at it. Sorry, guys, you're vulnerable. Part of that is our culture says we're friendly and we're nice to people by default. And if you're in our U.S. on our property, show up to our place of employment, we're taught to be nice to anybody. And especially a young woman, she's presentable. You know, I just can't get to it, you know, so yeah. But follow her, she's really good. And this is one of my favorite sayings. This is what Sean Hagney said. There is no patch for an untrained user, and even an experienced security professional who forgets in the heat of the moment to follow what they've been taught. And I want to talk to you and let you know that when you're being approached and you're being coerced or blackmailed, your CISO's not sitting there standing behind you going, say no, say no, say no, say no. You're all by yourself. And it's you against them by yourself. Your CISO wants you to say no, but he's not sitting there, and they probably caught you away from work. And they probably watched you leave work. I've seen articles that's happened where people are watching people come and go from the workplace, and then they'll follow them. Go watch what they're doing. And then if they can break into their phones or whatever. But most of the time, I'm going to watch who's coming in and out of the workplace. And I'm going to figure you out. This is Sean Hagney's. Any act that influences a person to take an action that may not be in their best interest. That is social engineering. That's what we call it. I personally think social engineering is dumbing it down for what it really is, which is espionage. They're using tried and true hard tradecraft that has been perfected over the years against you. We're calling it social engineering, and I'll tell you in a little bit. I didn't realize 1899 had been around since then. I've only heard it in the last years. When I was a counterintelligence agent, we didn't call it this. We called it espionage, spying, tradecraft. And the part is that the specific attributes of the human decision-making known as cognitive biases, these are biases sometimes called bugs in the human hardware, they're exploited. And this is the story. The pen tester company was hired to get the system domain admin's user ID and password. It was one guy. So they profiled him, they looked at his Facebook, they looked at his social media, all the open source stuff. They realized he either was recently married or his wife just had a baby. He was newly married, but I think he just had a baby or she just got pregnant. But they also noticed he liked the ladies. Somehow or another they figured that out. They had a woman on their pen test team, beautiful, young, asked her, would you be willing to coerce him and blackmail him, show up in some sexy lingerie in a hotel with him? Would you do that? Sure. Really? So she did. So I don't know how long it took for her to build a relationship with him. She showed up as an employee at work. They stuck to a friendship at work. She was able to convince him to show up to a motel room. She showed up to the motel room, went into the room. Now they have pictures of her walking up to the room, right? They got pictures of her in her sexy lingerie when the door is open. They got pictures of him showing up to the door, too. They got pictures of him standing in the doorway with her inside the room in her sexy lingerie while he's at the door. I've got you two together, right? So when he walks into the room, she goes, no, I'm not going to do it, and she walks off. Well, I don't need any pictures of her walking off, right? So I think the next day or the day after, they sent him a note and said, we want the user ID and password to the domain. He said, no. So the next day, they sent him pictures of him at the doorway with her with sexy lingerie at the motel or a hotel and said, we'll send these to your wife and your employer. Give us the user ID and password to the network. He said, okay. Pen test over, we won. And where was one lick of code? Where did I write one lick of code to coerce you and win that pen test? Now, on a side note, how many of you would be willing to admit you're a pen tester? Okay.
I do it sometimes as part of the bigger role.
Okay. Tell me, this is what I've asked others, and I've heard some pen testers say this. If I can't get through your network, through the firewalls with techniques, I'm going to show up in person. It is win. I will win. I will win. You will lose. You will lose. If I'm going to blackmail you and possibly cause you to get a divorce to win a pen test, that's pretty serious stuff. That's kind of nation state stuff that I would assume. When I found out the pen testing companies were willing to go to those such extremes, that's why I'm like, we got to do this. You guys need to be aware what you're facing. Also, at the Social Engineering Village last year, they had a panel, 2 men, 2 women, and we could ask them questions as, how far would you go? And one guy, we did ask him, how far would you go to win? And one of the guys, he goes, look at me. Who's going to deny me? Who's going to deny this? And I swing both ways. I was like, wow. So I don't think, I thought, I must have been naive. I never thought pen testing would go to that degree. But apparently, if that's what it takes to win, we're going to go. We're going there. We swing both ways. That was very interesting to me. But to blackmail him, and what I was told by the pen testing company, and the reason why they took it to that degree is they wanted to prove to the company that legally they didn't have any policies to safeguard employees when they were approached this way. They didn't have any training to tell the employee, what do you do when somebody wants to coerce you this way? So that's why he did what he did. That's why he blackmailed the young man and made him show up to a hotel room with a sexy lingerie pen tester. Espionage, first known around 1793. This wasn't what I was taught. I found it on the internet, so I'll use that. I love Robin Williams. Even Fool's Cryptias, he went over the definitions of all this. I don't want to redo it again, but it's gaining information, the way it always been. Spying, I brought this up because we use the word espionage differently. Some people use this differently than spying, but roughly they're the same thing. I like this one. This was a recent ex-CIA officer who was charged with selling secrets to China. He was in China when he got caught. He should have known better. That's his job. But he was in Shanghai and he was selling secrets to China. This was like in the last 5 years, if not really recent. So this is stuff that's still going on. This isn't old stuff. This is new. This is my favorite, one of my favorites. NSA employee, a Chinese NSA employee goes home. He is stealing NSA secrets. He puts them on his laptop at home. Kaspersky gets a hold of it because that's the virus protection he had installed. So they got a copy of it because he took it home. Not because they were looking for it, just because they had triggers to monitor for that. So they got a copy of it by default. And I just thought that was kind of cool. But I call this subversion. Kaspersky inadvertently getting your information, I think it's a little subversive in my opinion. I don't think they're willing to admit how much they have. And you've seen, if you've been watching the news, what's been happening. The government's like, get them off of all of our servers because of this kind of event happening. And Kaspersky's, he's Russian. His background is Russian. And so he's trying to distance himself, but I think it's failing. But that's me because I am paranoid, and I was brought up during the Cold War, and Russia has never changed their tactics. They still are doing what they're doing. I don't care if the Cold War is over. It's still a Cold War we got going on. This was a good one of Uber, like the intelligence gathering of businesses. That's what's going on now. They're saying that a lot of the traditional spies from the old days like me, we're now doing it on businesses instead of governments. Like, you got a whole bunch of them that have nothing to do, right? Because there's no Cold War, so let's go after businesses. You got Tradecraft, let's put it to work. But Uber, this is the one I liked with their general counsel when he got hired, because if you've noticed this last year. If you're following folks around to gain competitive advantage, that we're to be crystal clear to that an extent anyone is doing that competitive intelligence project that involves the surveillance of individuals, stop it now. I mean, he blanketly said, we're out there spying on our competitors. You know who their competitors were? Other U.S. companies. This wasn't competitors in a foreign country. These were U.S. competitors. And they put people inside their offices trying to steal their information so they could see how much competitive advantage another company had over Uber. This isn't nation state. This isn't China or Russia or Iran. This is a business doing on business. And there's more of this going on than we probably are aware of too, because we probably don't talk about it very much. And this is another one. Med Robotics. This is a Chinese national from Canada. He showed up at the office, and he was in the conference room about closing time. Medtronic's president, Samuel, he walked out and he saw him sitting there. He had 3 laptops open on the conference table. And he's like, can I help you? And he goes, yeah, I'm here to see the CFO. And he goes, well, the CFO's not here today. Oh, well, then I'm here to see the CTIO or whatever it was. And he goes, he's out of the country. Oh, well, then I'm here to see the CEO. And he goes, that's me, and I don't have an appointment to see you. They called the FBI. He called him. He got charged, and it said that his lawyer's defense was struggling to accept the fact he was no longer brilliant. That's my defense when I'm over there hacking at your network trying to steal secrets. What it was is he was representing a company in China that had been targeting Medtronic's Med Robotics, and the CEO had been turning them down. I don't want you to buy into my company. I don't want to share my designs with you. So instead of doing it legally, they came over to steal them. They were determined. You won't do business with me. I will still come and steal your information. You guys remember this? Are you that old? Anybody remember, right? I want to show you, see if I can show, I'm going to see if I can show this. Is this something new today that I'm going to do? This was brought up yesterday about the Americans, and I'll be honest with you, I can't watch the series. I watched it once, one episode, and everything that they talked about were things that I was taught and told not to talk about and do. And they're showing, and the series is very good. I can't say everything, but even the family struggles. I got orders to go, and I couldn't tell my family where I'm going or how long I'll be gone. I can't tell them where I'm going and what I'm doing, but I'm leaving them worried when I walk away with my luggage, right? So it's kind of interesting. Let's see if this plays.
We're up against the most sophisticated enemy in the world. Super secret spies living next door. They look for us to speak better English. Should we do?
Can you hear that?
How you doing, Stan Beeman?
My wife, Elizabeth Page Henry.
Hi.
What do you do, Stan?
I'm an FBI agent.
Have to make sure I don't do any spying around here.
The Americans is a somewhat sensationalized version of Soviet espionage in the United States. In fact, most Soviet spies in this country were Americans, not Russians, posing as Americans, and they didn't engage in murder, kidnapping, the kinds of dramatic episodes that appear on the Americans. The Soviet Union had 2 kinds of agents in the United States. The first kind were legal officers who would be attached to the embassy or consulate. Then there were the illegals, who were people that came into this country illegally and lived as ordinary Americans. The couple in the series are illegals, that is, they are Russian citizens who are in this country illegally, posing as Americans. They have jobs, and they spy on the side. When the Soviet Union recruited illegals, they were looking for people that were ordinary, that could blend into the United States.
I fit in like I was supposed to.
One of the advantages of recruiting people for the United States is that this country has a very diverse citizenry. So even somebody with an accent, say, can still pose as an American. The most important job that the illegals performed for the Soviet Union was to serve as couriers. The advantage of an illegal, he's in the country illegally, the FBI doesn't know who he is, he can meet with sources, pick up espionage material, and then he has to meet with somebody else to transfer it. But it's the anonymity that's important. Occasionally couples would serve as illegals. There were instances where you had couples who were not illegals, they were actually Americans spying for the Soviet Union, and the Soviet Union then attempted to recruit their children as spies.
The center started a program to develop second-generation illegals. They want Page to be next.
The illegals were not executed. The United States and the Soviet Union had a kind of implicit deal that they didn't do that sort of thing, which is also why one of the themes of the Americans are, all these assassinations and so on. Occasionally it happened, but it was quite rare, and certainly not in the 1980s. Countries never cease spying, and Russia has historically used illegals. No doubt they will continue to use them, but they're very expensive, and it costs a lot of money to train them, and it costs a lot of money to maintain them.
That's true. I can tell you right now, I know of a woman, I've met her, I've got a picture of her, she's beautiful, she's Russian, and she's working her way through the cyber community right now. So I'm trying to figure out how to turn her in, see what I can do, but she is targeting young men, single men, divorced men. She's good, she's beautiful. Industrial targets, right? Well, let's try this again. Here we go. I found this quote, this story, and I thought it was very interesting. We were never taught this either when I was going through my counterintelligence courses, but this was the answers that a Russian said. Why? This was during John Walker, and I'll talk a little about him later. But the spying had a repercussion to it that I never saw as a positive until this, and it doesn't mean I'm endorsing it, but it enabled Russia, to understand our true intentions. Were we calling foul? Were we really going to, send a nuke over there or whatever? But it was, were you willing to simply puffing up your cheeks? It helped us determine what your motivations were. And I never saw it from that aspect before, so it was kind of interesting. Not that I'm saying that's what, that shouldn't be your excuse when you start spying. Please don't use that. Pick something else with that. But I thought that was kind of interesting. I'd never thought about it, that helped. Maybe it did stop a war because they understood when we called, foul or called our bluff, and we called theirs too, because we are also doing some of the same stuff over there. I just don't talk about that. North Korea, if warfare was about bullets and oil, to now warfare in the 21st century is about information. I'm not going into the cyber aspects of it, but it is about capturing information. And like I said, if I don't have to hack your network to get the information, I just have to hack you. And if you have access to it, I think it's easier for me to get through you than it is for me to figure out your code and write some kind of scripts to get through it. I'm going to get through you. You're easier, unfortunately. Trust but verify. I like this. I was during Reagan era. But I like how the trust but verify is 1986, but 2017, we're now don't trust but verify. That is not our way. That is not the American way. We trust first, and then we verify. It's amazing how far we've come, but now it's really don't trust but verify. Reagan, that was one of his favorite sayings. That's why I brought it up, is he was saying it all the time to Gorbachev. Gorbachev kind of got peeved because he kept saying the same, he learned some Russian, let me practice it, and it was that. And he kind of got, I'm tired of that. But this is what I wanted to bring up, is that social engineering, I think, is we're dumbing it down, calling it social engineering, when really what it is espionage and spying. These are trade crafts that you are really, they're going to do what, if they're determined, they're going to do what it takes to get through. And I'm going to cover some the issues of MICE, money ideology, compromise, coercion, ego, and extortion. These are the main things that that are used against you to get information. Money, the easiest thing, right? If I can blackmail you, if you got credit debt, if I can, tempt you with the dollars, it's one of the easier ones other than sex. That's one of the easier ones in my opinion. Normally you put the sex, the two together is how those, most times it's more than one reason why you're going to fall victim to spying. Unless you completely decide, today I'm going to go do it, like Cryptia was like, don't decide that this is what you're going to do. It's not, just don't. But Hall, it was interesting, during the time that Hall, I was doing a counterintelligence investigation of a soldier at Fort Hood, Texas, roughly the same thing, but to charge him with espionage, the law says, for me to charge somebody with espionage, I have to find you handing that information off to a foreign entity. It doesn't matter what entity it is. It's another nation state, Israel, Canada, Mexico, a friendly. If I hand it off to somebody who's not supposed to get it, I can charge you with espionage. He had shipped. He was moving from Germany to Fort Hood. His job was the SIGINTer for all of Europe. He knew better than to ship SIGINT information in his household goods, and they showed up. And when we showed up at his house, we got a heads up that it was coming. We got a warrant. MPs, I don't arrest people, the MPs do, but they're there, and I'm there to read them the rights and take their statements. And we told him what we suspected was in his household goods. He's like, sure, come on in. We found cassette tape after cassette tape with secret written on it. They were all signals intelligence during the first Gulf Storm. I don't know how that got in my household goods. I don't know any about that. NSA came and took it away, and they showed us what it was, and it was communication that was done during the war. My job was to find out, to charge him with espionage. I was told to charge him with espionage, then I had to go prove it. And I'll be honest with you, after 4 or 5 months, I could never find the other half, which was the other entity that he was passing it to. His wife was German. She was East German, and she stayed in Germany and didn't come to the States. He was about ready to retire out of the military, had 22 years in. At the time that I was investigating him, he was also being investigated because he shipped Iraqi weapons back in a diplomatic pouch during the war, and you're not allowed to do that. So he was going to get an Article 15 for that. Then here I come with mine, and so the Army goes, well, because you don't have, and I'm like, I'm doing what I can. I figured out his finances. We did an audit of his finances. We couldn't see anything on that. Because I couldn't find the other entity, he got charged with an Article 15 mishandling classified information. And he got retired out of the military. Now, if you remember, Hillary Clinton, she mishandled classified information, and we didn't charge her with anything either. And it was obvious what she was doing. So I'm just bringing that up a little bit of, it's not hard to prove. I don't know why we couldn't prove it with her. But anyway, he was accepting $30,000 payments for his secrets, and he explained it away that he had a rich aunt. He got 25 years in jail. He served. He got sentenced to 40. He served 25. He is now out free and roaming around, keeping a low profile. He doesn't want people to know what his past is. He has a job. He doesn't want his employer to know that he got charged with espionage and was found guilty for it. Walker, he was during the Vietnam-era war. He's dead now. He died in prison. He got convicted when Reagan was president, and because of his espionage efforts, Reagan changed the law and said if you get charged with espionage, you can also get the death penalty. You didn't have it until him. So he didn't get the death penalty, but he got life in prison. What he did is he was in the Navy, and he was giving them signals intelligence, and he was giving them crypto so they could encrypt ours, so they understood what we were doing. In one of his defenses, he goes, I'm sorry that I gave the information to Russia. We weren't at war with Russia. I can't help that they shared it with Vietnam. That's not my fault. He also recruited his son, his best friend. He tried to recruit his daughter when she was in the Army. His wife turned him in 3 times to the FBI. They didn't believe her the first couple of times. I'm surprised she didn't get accessory to it because she knew what he was doing. Because she saw the money that he had. The expensive, lavish spending is what got him in trouble eventually, but his wife also did turn him in. And his daughter, if I understand it right, she was in the Army. She tried to turn him in too. It was just an unheard of thing during the time when he got picked up. No one wasn't expecting it. But he died in prison not too long ago. And I saw a 60 Minutes interview they did with him, and they asked him, hey, look what happened to you. What would you do differently? You know what his answer was? I wouldn't get caught. So there was no remorse. I would just be better at it. So as we'll go into this, his ego and the money played into his lavish spending, and he thought he was better than everybody. I've been doing it for 18 years. You couldn't catch me until now, so obviously I was better than you. Aldrich Ames, CIA employee. This hurt when I saw this. It was right after the time I got out of the Army, and I felt like I was part of, these were combatant arms, and here he is giving up information. He was charged in 1994. He's got life in prison without the possibility of parole. He's still alive. He also married a Colombian spy, and according to, this is open source information, Russia, the KGB, gave them a $2 million wedding gift because he was so good at what he did. And he also got, most of the people that he gave away in the Soviet Union were all killed later. If they were spying over in Russia, Russia took care of it. Ideology. This one is a little harder to find when people are doing this, because we all have opinions and we all have a belief about something, but it's when you're taking money for it that it becomes an issue, right? We can all have our opinions about where we're doing our, having our wars or whatnot, but it's just so interesting that both of these were spying for Cuba. This woman was a CIA analyst, or FBI analyst, DIA. And from what I found, because they didn't want it to go in the news, they did a plea bargain with her. She got a 25-year sentence. This man, he was also an analyst. He got life in prison, and his wife got 6 years. They both did the same thing, but that's how the things came out. But they did it for ideology. They didn't do it for money. Which, if I'm going to do it, you better pay me some money. But never mind. I didn't say that. You recognize these? Chelsea Manning. I like the quote, frequently people who go along a treasonous path do not know they're on a treasonous path until it is too late. That's what I kind of think some of the ideology is, especially with the young people. I've been trying to figure out, they were read on. They were told you have access to classified information. They were given training specifically how to safeguard it, but they decided giving that information up was more important than safeguarding the secret that they had. And Reality Winner, I love that name. Her trial is apparently coming up this year. I think it's starting to escalate. I just saw a headline that they got on her defense, they have a guy who is like the biggest guy on classified information, and he's saying the information that she gave away was not technically classified because it was in other sources. And because it was in other sources, you can't charge her with mishandling classified information, even though the information she gave away had secret written on it. So they're playing with stuff. But anyway, I like this. I got that look from my daughter all the time when I tell her to do something. Really, So anyway, but the Russians know this one is probably easy to manipulate because of your ideology. And if the disinformation that we see in Twitter and Facebook about our election, think about that. They did monkey with it. And we just, we didn't think about that. But they're aware of this, and we're I don't want to say gullible, but we are. We're nice. Another favorite, Edward Snowden. Like I said, I've investigated people. I've read people their rights. I've taken sworn statements for what he did. I can't say that what he did was not breaking the law. He said he didn't do anything wrong because I'm a whistleblower. Well, I think there are better ways for you to be a whistleblower than going over to Russia and China with classified information and giving it to them. I think there's better ways to do that. He didn't use those. You know. Coercion. I call it sex. But there's other ways. It's blackmail. There's other things you can do instead of sex, but for coercion. Embarrassing information about a person's activities unless they provide them a secret, extramarital affairs, homosexuality, and undiscovered crimes. Like I said, the domain admin that was approached by a red team, that wasn't China. That was a red team company that approached him and compromised him. I was unaware that we went to those depths on a red team, but when the guy said, I swing both ways and nobody can deny me this, it's like, damn. You guys are not, you're going to fall victim. Unfortunately, women are very good at being the honeypot. We saw, and I still picture, I've got one of the same pictures, but she's my favorite, Anna Chapman. And I was reading up on her this morning. She now is making other quotes. I got a thing on that coming up. But this right here was during World War II. You know, you would think, beware of women spies, female spies. Well-behaved women seldom make history. All these women that you see over here, they were spies for us. They were friendlies, but we used them. She's North Korean. This is what you saw yesterday, the swallow honeypots. Like I said, I've got a picture of the woman who is slowly working her way through our little community here. She's targeting young men. She's successful. She's good at it. You guys are suckers. I'm sorry, but she's good. I know. I'm sorry. Huh? Unfortunately, when it works, you keep doing it. Why do something else if this old way keeps working? This is, who's going to deny that? Come on, she's beautiful. I think she's beautiful. I'm not that way, but she's beautiful. And she went back to her country as a hero. She had her own talk show. Like I said, there's her quoting right here. She's urging Putin to sink UK ships. This came out last month. So famous, she now has political agenda, like we do over here, like our singer and songwriters. They become political. Anna, because she was so successful, and she was part of a 10-member team that we swapped. This is the ones we swapped her with. You remember this in England? They poisoned him. He was one of the ones that got swapped with her. And then her boyfriend, her husband, her British husband, he died last month too. Wow. Drug and poisoning kind of seems to be the Russian way of going about doing things. I'd kind of avoid wanting to be I'll be honest with you, I'll tell you this. If your girlfriend is Russian, and she still has family in Russia, like her parents, you might want to second guess being in a relationship with her. I'm just saying. Think about it. If her parents, who are highly influential to her, are still in Russia, they can put pressure on the parents to put pressure on her, or they'll coerce her. That's not unheard of to be done. And China has done the same thing. Think about it. And this is something else. If you had a security clearance, and I did, my OPM records have been hacked, right? And, everyone wants to be upset about Equifax. Well, I'm pissed off about OPM because OPM has me, my children, my friends, my neighbors, my coworkers, all my bosses. They have all of that, whoever they are. And I personally think I could probably get my birth certificate faster from China than I could get it from the county that I was born in. Just saying. But if you have my OPM records, you know everybody that I have friends with, my children, neighbors, they talk to all of them to get that information. So now, whoever the entity that has that information also knows that about me, but they also know about let's just say it's China that has it. Just say. Now they know all the Chinese nationals that live over here, who have clearances and where their jobs are. They also know all their family members that are still left in China. Just saying.
Also, since you have to disclose close and continuing, they know who's in China that has friends here in interesting places.
When you go, exactly, when you have a security clearance and you've been read on, like if you're working in a classified area or whatever, you go visit another country, you have to record it that you're visiting. So you have to put down all that information. You have to give it up. So back to your point, yeah, they probably know But I just think it was kind of interesting that these two, in the same month of March, it's just interesting. Her husband, dies and his daughter. Very interesting. Now I know you can't read this, and I'm sorry, and I've been criticized for the small print. Tough, but I will tell you about it. This happened while I was in. Lone Tree was a Marine guard in the Moscow U.S. Embassy. And happenance, while he was going home one day, met a really nice young Russian girl on the train. They struck up a friendship, they struck up a relationship, and I'm not sure at what point where he decided that he needed to give them the architect of the U.S. Embassy that was being built in Russia. He gave it to her, and he knew what he was doing at the time. I think she introduced him to her handler at the time. And so the embassy was being built, they had the schematics of it. Every wall had a bug in it. If not more than one, probably. Every room in the U.S. brand new embassy was bugged. When he got sent to, I think it was Sweden, to another embassy in another country overseas, that's when he decided to come forward and tell his boss what he had done in Russia. And that's when they realized we can't use the embassy at all. They had to rebuild it. There was no reason to go in and try and find every bug and every wall. Let's just rebuild. Because of what he did, they had to rebuild the U.S. Embassy in Moscow. Just a little thing, Just a girl that I met on a train. She said she loved me. I'll be with you forever. I love you. I'll have your kids. I'll say whatever you want. This was another one. This happened last year. I thought that was, I have to admit, I was naive. I didn't think Iran would do this, but they did. Mia Ash, they took a lady's information off of Facebook. All of you that post your personal pictures on Facebook, I've seen others do it. Take your pictures and say, that's my family. And I'm trying to hide who I am, so I'm going to take your stuff and pretend that's me. That's what they did with this young woman. Said she was a photojournalist, and what they did is she started targeting contractors in the Middle East and Saudi Arabia, in addition to the United States. But they were doing engineers of oil and gas, aerospace, and telecommunication firms, targeting middle-aged men. I'm sorry, guys. There's another one. It works. And they did click on it. And when they clicked on pictures that she sent them, they had installed malware and screened stuff on their, started taking stuff from them. But that's what they were targeting specifically, was middle-aged men in these industries, in those countries. Iran was doing it to get information. Kind of cool. This is my favorite. This one has really come up and said that this was espionage, but what I think is interesting is this woman right here down at MacDill. She's first-generation Lebanese. First-generation Lebanese. She is the social liaison for MacDill Air Force Base. And so she hosts, do you guys remember this? Do you know this story? She hosts parties for the generals on post. This is SOCOM. This is generals of all branches of the military. It's not just one. It's not just the Air Force. This is I think it's the southern region that is commanded out of here, which is a lot of responsibility here. And so she hosts parties, right? Well, Petraeus, which was really kind of interesting, his name, these two struck up a relationship. She was writing his biography. They struck up a relationship. Both of them, everybody up here is married. I'll tell you a little bit about that. She got upset with her for sending emails to him. You leave my guy alone. Stay away from him. Well, she was also sending quite a few emails to this general. And apparently, somehow or another, I don't know how she knew all this was going on, but those two were doing some really good stuff. So she sent her an email, leave my guy alone, or, you know. So she goes and sends to this FBI agent right here, I'm being harassed in email and I feel threatened. So he started, this is an FBI agent, he started looking into it, and he's the one who discovered what these two are doing and blew the whistle on them. Now, I don't know if you can see this right here. You can see this Abby guy right here, these abs. That's him, his abs he sent to her. I'm going to tell you this, when I was an agent, no dude sent me that. I want a do-over, and, you know, I want abs. Like, I'm in Twitter.
Just put the link, it's fine.
But they discovered this agent and her had some kind of email going on because he sent her abs pictures. Like, oh, it's just all innocent right now. Every single one of them is married. And I mentioned that to somebody. They're like, what do you think about swingers? Interesting that not one of them, as far as I'm aware, has gotten a divorce because this came out. I didn't, just saying. Just thought it was interesting. But, never mind, it's just interesting. This one, looks old, and it kind of is, but Madame Butterfly, this is a man. That man right there. He's Chinese. He pretended he was a woman for so many years, and even for this French official, even said, I birthed your baby. No sex change. I birthed your baby. They were together for many years. He believed the child that they took out of a Chinese orphanage was his. Now, what happened was, it wasn't like he was pregnant into his face. They split up for a couple of years, and while they were split up for 3 years, that's when he said he had the baby. So he never saw him pregnant, but they had a relationship. And I've had someone ask me, how do you know? And I'm like, I don't know how they had a relationship, because he did not have a sex change, but they had intimacy for years. But this is Madame Butterfly. If you ever watch it, that's what this is, based upon real life stuff. I thought that was kind of interesting. And after World War II, East German government sent Romeo spies into West Germany. Think about it. After World War II, how many West German women were widows? So East Germany sent a lot of their spies over there to coerce them. They married them, made a life with them, and they were successful in getting information back over to former East Germany. Ego. This is, like I said, it's, pride and motivating spies, often hard to demonstrate. Like, it's like a game of chess. I'm better, you say you're good, I'm good, I see who's better at it. I think that's what pen testers are doing. It's a game. You think you're security, I'm security, game on. It doesn't matter if I'm breaking the law, it's game on. Who's better at it? This is kind of ego. And this is what, this was John Walker we talked about earlier. His ego got him in trouble. And this is what his handler had to say about him. He's always wanted to be the one in the center of attention. He was ambitious without a limit, was shameless and even cynical. He was let down by his own self-assurances, extreme self-assurances. We managed him, Russia said, we managed him perfectly. He screwed it up. We didn't screw him up, he screwed himself up. They're complaining. He was successful. He did a good, Russia was complimenting him. That's what you want. You can do that. They became careless because they believed they were wiser than their peers, more talented, and even invulnerable. Robert Hansen, they said he didn't feel like he was appreciated in the FBI. He was overlooked. There were better agents than he was, so he was going to become a spy and prove to them all wrong how good I was. You didn't pay attention to me, you ignored me, I'll get you back. And he did. And money was a way to keep score, but it was not the driver. He got money for it. Now bring this one up. This guy here, Aaron Banks, this is over in Europe about BRICS. He has questionable gazillions of dollars, and he's lost it, and it's been given back to him. She's Russian. That's his wife. She married when she got to Europe. She was young. She married a British citizen to get citizenship. And after 2 months of being married to a guy who was 20 years her senior, she went to this official and convinced him to get her a divorce. This guy has been charged with doing that with a lot of beautiful women that have been doing the same thing, claiming I can't live with the British guy that I just married and I'm Russian. So there's allegations of wrongdoing with him and her, but she married to him now, and now all of a sudden he has more gazillions of dollars and he's helped funding the brick sex that's going on. I just bring it up because I think it's ironical that, you know, he does have Russian influence background. She's Russian. And all of a sudden, his gazillions of dollars that he lost has been given back to him so we can help fund BrickSex. And he's one of the major funders of BrickSex. Just thought it was kind of ironical. And then I found her, and I was like, wow, she looks like the girl that I see working through our cyber community too, beautiful. But this right here, this was a quote. I didn't make this up. They were the same type, long-legged, good-looking blondes, never older than 25, fluent in those languages and a higher education. I can tell you now, the woman who's working her way through our cyber community, she's a programmer and she wants to work for the Federal Reserve. She does speak 3 languages, more than 3, I think. Someone told me she speaks almost close to 10. But she loves me, and she wants to have my baby. I know she does, but she broke up with him. And when he found out what she was doing, he also found out she was sending pictures of herself to his best friends. She didn't think those two would ever collaborate, and they're looking at their phones going, oh, crap, you know. It happens. And yes, she loves you. Yes, she's going to say whatever you want to hear. Yeah. Yeah. I'm sorry, I don't mean to leave you paranoid, but I do want to leave you a little bit of being self-aware of what's going on around you, especially if you have access to information. Even if you don't think you don't have access, you might be the conduit to another one who does. It all works out. Take a look. You good? Y'all good? Huh? You think so? I think he saw boobs. I don't care who you are. Even the girls saw boobs. I did when I saw it. I didn't see that for a little bit because I'm like, why am I looking at this? But this is something I wanted to bring up. When I was in the Army, and I ended this briefing with everybody because I was a counterintelligence agent, I was told the units, if you suspect that you're being targeted or you see a coworker that is exhibiting some of this behavior or you're seeing it, you would come and tell me. Please don't come and tell me. Today, I don't do that work. I do not work for those agencies. But if you do think something like that is going on and you do think it's being targeted to you or a coworker, if you're seeing the behavior, call the FBI. Now, I did bring it up when I was putting this together, and I said maybe you might want to find out if there's a red team event going on, since they might use pretty women in sexy lingerie to entice you to a hotel room so they can blackmail you later. And one of the CISOs, I brought that up to, and he goes, "Do not come and tell me that, and do not come and ask me that. If you think there's a red team, still call the FBI. I think that's what the IT departments want you to do, so call the FBI." Yes, sir.
So, after looking at all this, I have a question.
Sweet.
So, considering all the things that can happen to you if you do tell the FBI, up to and including them assuming you're involved, and then considering the case of Edward Snowden, where if you take him at his word, he did try to run it up for official channels, where there's an old quote, if a man's salary depends on him not understanding something, he's not going to.
Right.
What do you suggest we do? Because it seems like,
you're all by yourself.
There is nowhere to turn.
All right, you're the target. Are you the victim? Are you claiming victim? Or do you think someone else is doing it? Because it kind of...
I claim nothing.
Okay. If you think you're being targeted, still call the FBI. Because like they said, you might not be the end result. This might be some other reconnaissance that's going on. You just might be caught up in it, or just one of the targets to get to it. I think you're alluding to maybe some fear of the 3-letter agency, right?
Well, how many known people who work for the 3-letter agency? agencies, they're almost as bad as the red teams. They want to win.
Right.
They don't care at what cost, even if that cost includes you.
Right. I don't have a very good answer for you, because the one thing I would say, you're going to have to trust someone in the FBI. I mean, if the CISO doesn't want to be told, if you don't know there's a red team going on, which most of you don't know when that happens, hopefully you do not know when they show up and do that, then you're going to have to just trust one of them. But I mean, when people came and told me, I knew what I was supposed to do with it. I didn't, all of a sudden put you up to a lie detector test and go, No, we did an investigation. We looked into your allegations. We looked into what were the circumstances of it to make sure that it was, with what it was. But I hate that you have that kind of experience, because I want to trust those agencies, because that's what I used to do, and that's,
I will chime in that if you have a really on top of it CISO, if they're targeting you, they're probably targeting something you're responsible for, so your CISO cares.
Right.
As a CISO, I know who an FBI cybercrime that I dealt with is a moron and who I actually want to give a problem to, and I maintain the relationships with the good ones. So, and there are some who I don't want them preparing my breakfast. And there are some that I will actually work with, but as a CISO, I see it as my job to maintain relationships. So if something touches someone in my organization, I know where to go to get real resources, or the feedback that this is or isn't something the FBI actually cares about.
That's a good point. I would back to your point, I would hope that your CISOs and your organizations have relationships with the FBI. I've called the FBI because of an event that was going on in my company. I'm not a CISO, but I called him, and he was more than willing to help me. And I feel like I have and I met him face to face. That kind of helped too, so some trust. And he gave me good advice about an event that we were suffering. And back to your point, hopefully the CISOs realize they need that liaison with law enforcement of some type to come in. But like I said, this one CISO goes, "Don't come tell me," and I'm like, well.
What's your job then?
Huh? Yeah.
As a CISO, what's your job?
Exactly. Any other questions? You can always come grab me. It's 4 o'clock. I got to go. But you can always come grab me. Please don't tell me any secrets.